Just before we start the podcast, we would like to invite you to get a copy of our new book called Living from Your Art. You can find it on any Amazon platform. You will see it's a very bright colored orange and yellow book cover, and it was made for you artists because you help us live in a better world. We want to help you get more work. So thank you so much, and let's start this podcast.
Woohoo! Hey, hello everyone. Welcome for another episode of the Puppet Podcast. Here we are in a special edition. We will talk about our lovely Danny Joe, who have a project. And yes, Danny Joe LaBrecque have a tons of project, but he will talk. We receive him in the edition traditional. He presents his puppets and all of that stuff, but has he have a new series and new stuff going on? We feel that it was amazing to have him back. But before we go into the interview, we talk about our book, but I want to tell you that the podcast is doing great. We connect with many people. We have project in the air, and we want to be in touch with you guys. If you have any suggestion, you want to talk to us, feel free to put comments, to ask questions during the interview. And everyone in the podcast family is doing great. So everyone, please drum roll for the wonderful Danny Joe LaBrecque.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Girl, hey everybody.
Hey, technology.
I know. We've got the latest equipment here at Danny Joe's Treehouse.
Yeah. Danny, so nice to have you back in the show and to know more about like what you have developed, because we know the pandemic brings you into a process. You have done a web series, and now you going in another phase with that amazing project. Please feel free to introduce this wonderful project to the community who is watching right now.
Oh, thank you so much for the opportunity to do so. And thank you for all of the resources that you give us artists. I love your podcast, and the book is great. And it really is truly appreciated. If you don't hear that too much on the other side of the screen, it means a lot to all of us. I know it does. It does to me. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. So believe it or not, we are actually coming up on our 20th year anniversary from the point of developing Danny Joe's Treehouse. We've actually been around for a really long time. It started back in Chicago as a live show. I did lots of puppet therapy work in classrooms, and it kept evolving, and it became a web series eventually. And then we kept polishing it. And now we have landed on two wonderful streaming platforms that I really love, Cadoodle TV and Sensical TV from Common Sense Networks, which is backed by Common Sense Media. And I love those two platforms because for me, about 2 years ago, I had a real conflict. My audience is specifically 2 to 4 year olds, and they're adults. And I was mainly reaching out to families through social media, through YouTube, like many other artists. But I started getting, and I had been receiving, lots of feedback from families about experiences that were not positive through the YouTube algorithm, unexpected things that would come up and interrupt the lineup of shows that we had created. And social media is a complex thing, and I couldn't justify bringing young kids in through Danjo's Treehouse. I wanted to give them the resources to think critically in person, in real life, before entering this. So I felt a little bit like a hypocrite, and I was trying to figure out, how do I do that? And then I found Cadoodle TV first. It was great because there's no algorithm. It's all human reviewed stuff. And then I found Sensical TV, and for Common Sense Media, they're so particular about what makes the cut. Like it is very difficult to get on that platform, and as a parent, as a caregiver, whatever is on there is going to be age appropriate for your child. They divide it from 2 to 4, and then 5 to 8, and then 8 to 10. And it's great, and they're both free. You can do a subscription if you want to, but they're free. So I'm really happy that we landed there, and we're still trying to figure out how do we let everybody know that we're there?
Yeah,
because we're not doing all of the wonderful things that you suggest in your book, so trying to find that way to not compromise and still reach people. That's still a nut that we're trying to crack. Sensicle's helping me a lot with that, which is great. But what it boils down to is we've been doing some of the best work that we've ever done. Season 3 is going to drop at the end of this month, maybe going into next month in October of 2022. And it's much higher production values. My wife Stephanie and I are still doing it from home in our home studio in our basement. But it's just more refined, and we're digging into those social issues as always, but we're really focusing in on how to navigate pervasive media and pre-digital media literacy, even for 2 to 4-year-olds, because it is definitely part of their lives. So we're doing some amazing things.
Yes, that's so exciting that you go in, because you said you got the time, you got the resource to dig into the work, like to polish your stuff. But I'm curious, as artists, we polish our art, we polish our creation. But I want to hear you on that, like for you, what it is to get time to work more and deep and dig into what you want to do and create.
Well, I think the COVID-19 and quarantine, in many unexpected ways, was kind of a positive thing for being at home and having uninterrupted time to really focus and reflect and think about bigger picture stuff. At first, we were all about putting out content as much as possible to serve the audience and try to work through complicated times and have, try to provide some type of routine, having daily live streams and things like that when we were still on Facebook. But then it was time to just kind of step back and take all of the feedback that we were getting and the letter. I receive a lot of emails from the people that watch our show, and the common, I always look for the common themes, social themes that come up from my audience, but in general. And a lot of it was, I'm trying to think of a good way to say. So I think quarantine gave adults a reminder of what it's like to be a little kid. Because it's playful and it's joyful, but it can also be really hard and confusing and stressful. And I think for us adults during quarantine, we were experiencing what little kids experience throughout their early development. It's striving for independence. It's I can do it. I can do it on my own. I can do it. But at the same time, wanting to reach back to something familiar and safe and grounding, right? That pull back and forth. And then also needing some sort of routine. I know that I'm going to wake up in the morning. I know I'm going to brush my teeth and have my breakfast. I'm going to get to play with my friends. And I know this is, having that consistent routine is very reassuring. And when that routine is mixed up and unexpected, it creates a lot of anxiety and stress. And then the rules changing all the time, the authority, whether it's the grown-up or government or whatever, just constantly changing rules. That's childhood, and I think reflecting on that, I got a deeper sense of where young kids were and what they were thinking about and playing about. I always look and listen very carefully to how children play to get an idea of where they're at. And from that reflection and from that research, I started to rethink about how I presented my content as a teacher, not just as a host, but as an educator and caregiver through the screen. And the puppets evolved that way too. They're still simple hand puppets, but we can get into that later. But everything just refined out of that, I think.
Wow, yeah, that's true. It's a good way to see it back. And I want to also talk about the audience, because your audience is so young, but I want to talk about the content that you're giving, because it's really, as you say, polished, and it's really something precious that you talk with children. Like the wave of your show is also really for them. So I want to talk about this age particularly.
Yeah. Well, I think with this age group, especially in children's media, I think often we artists are conditioned in many ways to give them what maybe executives are interested in or producers are interested in. And that is stuff that will sell. That is stuff that will stimulate and hold attention and get lots and lots and lots of hits. And the more hits you get, the more money you can make, because it's a broader audience and you can sell to that broader audience, right? So what we start to see is very similar stuff. And this is no judgment. Like this is just what it is. There's lots of cartoons, there's lots of caricatures that are super, super silly and high-pitched voices, big eyes and childlike voices, and fast-paced. Lots of anticipation tricks, what's in the box, what's in the egg, what's it going, that sort of stuff that pulls you in, very similar to social media techniques, with adults. And it works, it sells, and it's fine for what it is if you know what it is going into it. I call it cookies for breakfast. Like, you give a kid a plate of cookies for breakfast, they're going to be very happy. Like a teacher walking into a classroom on Monday and saying cookies for breakfast, yay, cookies for breakfast. No one's going to be like, oh, cookies for breakfast. And the next day, more cookies and more cookies, and maybe some options of fruit on the side too, but there's cookies are there. And Friday comes around and caregivers start calling and saying, hey, what's the deal with all the cookies for breakfast? And if the response is, oh, well, kids love cookies for breakfast. Kids today like cookies for breakfast. See, we have all this research from our data. We can prove this is what kids want, so we're going to give it to them. Well, one, you're the one that started giving them the sugary cookies in the first place. And two, as responsible adult caregivers, yeah, of course we can give our kids sweets and delicious things every once in a while. I like cookies, but we also need to have that balance, And that doesn't mean on going to the extreme other side of just raw broccoli, but a healthy, balanced diet. And I think that needs to relate to our media and to our live performances too. So we can do the super silly, fun stuff that makes us laugh, but we can also understand that young children are human beings with a broad range of emotions and concerns, and we can address those deeper issues too in age appropriate ways.
Yeah.
So that's what I try to do with Treehouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really love it. And could you show us a little bit of your studio, where you're at, and maybe how you're set up, because it's so amazing to create from the basement a wonderful set like you have.
Yes, absolutely. I'd love to show some behind the scenes stuff. So some tips to the creators out there for doing something on the cheap. I was very heavily influenced by the local kids shows of the late 60s, even going back to the early 50s with like Kugla, Fran and Ollie, and Ding Dong School with Miss Frances. And it was super, shoestring budget, cheap stuff, because there was no budget, but out of that came really creative things. So I tried to emulate that. So at first my set was just stretched canvas on boards and paper mache, but those are super heavy and difficult to work with. And if you end up doing a live show, a live performance at a theater, it's a pain to carry all that stuff. So I found this amazing material. I highly recommend it. It is pink insulation foam.
Oh, I can go larger. So
if you want this stuff.
That's
what all of the set, except for the tree. The tree is a giant construction tube, like a toilet paper tube, and lots of burlap and plaster and paper mache. But everything else is made out of this stuff. and it's like $40 at the Home Depot for like a 4x6 giant sheet. And when you carve it, you can get these amazing, you can make it look like wood. You can make it look like stone. If you use a nice matte paint, it holds paint well, and you don't have to worry about shine on camera with your lights. And it's super duper light. I can watch this. Watch this. You can pick up the whole thing. It's so light. So I highly recommend using those sort of materials for your sets. Easy to carve, easy to paint, glues together really easy. Yeah, so that's our set. I'll spin around a little bit here. So there's Kingsley's Castle, which is heavily inspired by Kugler, Fran, and Ollie, that style. And this is Teddy's tree. Teddy pops in from the side here. You can have a conversation while you're in frame. And I recently built Ollie Oxenfree's barn, and he pops out of the top window there. And there's some other set pieces that are packed away right now, the interior of the treehouse and other things like that. And then the puppets are all made from clay for the most part, and then 3D printed to make them a little bit lighter.
That's interesting to work with the 3D.
Yeah. Well, so the clay, the heads were like 5 pounds on my finger. It was very painful. So I did a little Kickstarter. It was the only Kickstarter I ever did that was successful anyway, to go to a local 3D shop here in Baltimore. And they came out exactly the same. And then I just painted them and they turned out great. Yes. I think so too. I look fantastic. Check 1, 2. Yes.
They scan.
Bonjour, comment allez-vous? Ça va?
Ça va très bien.
Oh, bon. Coucou. Coucou.
They scan the head and they reproduce it in 3D.
Yeah. It's just it's like a white resin, not plastic, but like this hard. Sorry, it's like a hard material, super durable. It's great when I'm in the classroom with kids. I don't have to worry about the clay head cracking, and it's much lighter. I can get much more expression. Even though it's not a moving head puppet like a Muppet, I can still get a lot of expression from very subtle movements.
Yeah.
And then I did start moving into more cloth puppets, going back to exploring social media stuff. I started a series of interviews for adults called Cookies for Breakfast. And I just started reaching out to my mentors, pioneers in children's media, and asking them about their experiences when television was new and how they were negotiating that, and the complexities that came with the influence that came with traditional commercials. And now we have much more subtle, types of forms of influence. So I was having these conversations with them off the record, and then I realized, I should do like what Caro does. So we just do ours through Zoom, and put it up on Vimeo. But I've had amazing conversations. I've talked with Howard Blumenthal, who was the creator of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, and Dr. Scott, the paleontologist from Dinosaur Train, and just these amazing people that really have very interesting perspectives on this stuff. But this is one of the new puppets. This is a Scrapbook, the social media snake. And he kind of like gets you to, will you let me in? Will you let me in? And he has a lot of reach, and you give him your drawing, but then he often nips at you. You're like, oh, why'd you nip at me? Well, you knew I was a snake when you let me in. He's actually more of this kind of a guy. Got a little bit of Mark Zuckerberg-y happening. Yeah. He's complex.
Yeah. Some criticism, like you can critic, that's art duty also, to critic our society.
Yeah. Even with, yes, absolutely. Like whether you're doing the sculptures or the paintings or complex films for adults, children's media often has social commentary. You can't help it if you're living through something, right? Kids do understand, like kids get what happens with things like Facebook and Instagram. They're exposed to it. They're brought into it, often without really having a choice. Social media, there's with most social media, it's 13 and up, but now they're introducing kid friendly Instagram for kids and TikTok and even before that, young kids were on those platforms because parents would bring them in to become kid influencers. Your kid can become a brand. Brandon isn't just Brandon. Brandon can be a brand. How does a young kid begin to process what that means long term?
In long term.
But it's also new. And again, it's without judgment. It's just we need to kind of step back and look at this and talk to the kids about how to think critically. And having a conversation like an adult conversation like this doesn't fly, but not with young kids, but you can still address it. And puppets are great. Like this is algorithm. He's kind of a Ollie from Kukla, Fran and Ollie sort of character. And, we'll be talking about something like, this apple's delicious. Hey, I couldn't help over here. You like apples. You might like this. And then he drops in a pine cone, like a pine cone. Well, it's on trees. You like trees? Well, sure. I like trees. And well, if you like trees, you might like, and he just keeps suggesting stuff, It's like, I was just scrolling by, like you can play about anything.
That's amazing. That's so that's deep, but you bring it in a fun and playful way. And I want to know a little bit more about, since it's called TV, like the fact that they are part of your creative process. They help you also to manage all of that.
I mean,
who are those guys? Who are they?
Oh, they're great. Well, if you're there's a good chance that people out there might be familiar with Common Sense Media. They do reviews of every type of media that's out there for different age groups, and they're very reliable, and they do solid reviews, and it's from the perspective of, is this going to overwhelm a young kid? Is this going to help them developmentally? Like they're educators. They're focused in developmental or early childhood education up to high school. And adults too, like they know their stuff. And for many of the same reasons or concerns that I had related to things like YouTube and social media, they were like, well, let's do an alternative. Let's build a platform that kids can still come in. They can still find the video games that they like if they're older. They can find their streamers. They can find shows like mine. They can find cartoons. But it again, the review process though, it's very difficult to get in. If it's the type of kids show that is indirectly selling something, or it's a level of superficial that's about getting the numbers, it will not pass the grade. Like it's a high level of quality content. I'm super proud to be part of it. And they're thinking about social media in general. They're working with other larger platforms to try to make stuff age appropriate and more on that side of empowering families and educating the young child, less about selling the tech, because the tech's going to change. We kind of talked about this a little bit offline. TikTok's the most popular thing in the world right now, right? But in the future, it's most probably going to be like MySpace, like it's like, what's a TikTok? Like those platforms, going back to radio, like they evolve, they change, they're constantly changing, but people, we're pretty much the same, we're these creative, thoughtful beings, and we choose how to use the tools, not the other way around. Like I always compare it to a kid with a stick, like every kid I've ever met around the world, every human child loves to play with sticks because they're amazing. They're one of our first tools in our evolution. A stick can be anything you want it to be. But so often adults will say, oh, don't play with it. Put it down. You're going to poke your eye out. You're going to get hurt, right? Don't even touch it. But that the kid's eventually going to go play with the stick when you're not looking. But you can also have an approach as a parent, as a caregiver of, hey, you found a stick. I love sticks too. They're great. They can be anything you want. You can draw with it. You can build with it. You can come up with ideas I haven't even thought of. And you might get hurt if you're not careful. So I'm gonna be close by. If you need me, I can back you up. But you experiment with this. You have to learn how to use the tool responsibly. And the only way you're going to do that is by playing with it. And I think that applies to all of this amazing tech that we've got. It's really not that different from a stick, but it's empowering the kid, because there is this shift where the tools are making more of the choices for us. I think we got to turn back a little bit on that. Because the stuff coming down the pipeline, it's going to be like, up to now, everything has been, you look at it, it's flat, you're experiencing it that way. Very soon, it's going to be fully immersive, and virtual reality, metaverse, whatever, terms people use for it. It's coming. We don't know exactly what it'll be. There are like proto metaverse sort of things like Roblox and stuff like that. But it's going to get complicated. And I think we've got to plant some seeds now with our youngest. So they can think critically, so they can have media literacy skills,
And I love that you say empower the kids, like to give them the power of choice and decision, and to see the full picture, and because they are intelligent, and we need to give this like acknowledgement to them. I want to see some puppets, Danny.
Okay. Yes, yes, ma'am. So we talk about other social issues too. I have many families and children in my life that are thinking about transition and identity and expression, and that's been in our news in lots of different ways. And I've been very angry at how many adults have turned on young children for having some new language, some new words to express who they are on the inside. And that's great. We're all on this journey of understanding who we are. But when those things get politicized, it makes me so upset. So we created a character years ago named Ollie Oxenfree. And he's kind of like this sort of, almost a howdy doody, that sort of guy. He's like a little farmer, very traditional puppet, right? And Ollie has been evolving over many seasons to transition to Ollie Oxenfree. And going back to representation, we talked about the last time we had our talk online. But now Ollie has transitioned to Olive, and we're having these complex conversations that are from the child's perspective, but also from the parent's perspective of, I'm trying, like, this is when you were born, I looked at you and I saw the outside stuff, and this is what I thought. This is what I thought you were. This is who I thought you were. But of course you're going to become your own self. And this is kind of hard. This is hard for me to think in a new way. Lots of parents are feeling that way, and that's okay. But we're growing together. So anyway, so we still talk about complex social stuff like that, but we can do it in these really sweet ways.
That's complex. That's true.
It is complex. And I think a lot of adults, will be like, why are you teaching that to? I'm not telling anyone how to think. I think of Danny Joe's Treehouse as a reflection of what's happening in our world. And that's a big piece. And it's not new. Like, there have always been a variety of human beings who express themselves in many ways in the deepest sense of self. And it's always been that way. So here's Olive. Yeah. How are you? Yeah. I'm a little different on the inside, but it's me. Yeah, I'm proud of who I am. And we made this song that's very much about that process of trying to be with one another, and just try to understand. But it goes, I spy with my little eye 2 eyes and a nose, and I spy with my little eye your fingers and your toes, and there's something else that's deep inside that I can't quite yet see. But I'll try and you try, together, you and me. And it goes on and on. But it's like, it's just a lullaby about acceptance and love. And that can be hard. We act like it's the storybook easy thing to love. It takes work, But again, I think we can play about anything not preach it, not like this is what you should think. There's so much of
Yeah.
that in media. Think this in every level of media, from early childhood
Yeah.
to adult. And I'm much more interested as a teacher in encouraging children to think, like how to think instead of what to think, how to engage in
Mhm.
the process of thinking for yourself and
Yeah.
hearing one another. It's it feels like I don't know, it feels like a much more important mission than what I
Yeah.
started off with.
Yeah.
Like I don't see myself wrapping up a season. Like I see myself as a grandpa going up into my treehouse one day,
Yeah, but you telling story and you help children to think, as you say, to ask them question, and
Yeah.
I think you do it in a lovely way, and with this show, and I wish the best for this third season for Danny Joe
Oh,
Treehouse.
thank you so much. And I'm sorry, I'm putting the puppet down there. And I also I just wanted to add, like it's we are classified as a preschool series, a show for preschoolers, 2 to 4 year olds, but it is absolutely as much for adults as it
Mm-hmm.
is for children. Like I get emails from adults that don't have kids that like watching the show, because everybody deserves that. Like
Yeah,
what we were saying earlier, like this reminder of what it's like to be a child,
yeah,
during quarantine, independence and striving and all of that stuff. Like it's a human experience. So anytime someone authentically is like, you matter, you're not, Fred Rogers used to talk about being special.
yeah,
Um, and I know he thought this way too, but I would add on to it, like you're incredibly special. You're not better than anybody else, but you are special, like you do matter. There is something unique in you.
yeah,
But you don't, you're not above anyone else. There doesn't have to be this constant battle. We can work through without hurting ourselves, hurting others, and it feels like we're in this weird like growing pains still, where we need those sort of reminders from our screens, those sort of
yeah,
messages, instead of like and subscribe. Like, okay, I don't like the first episode of the new season. You showed a picture of it at the beginning. I'm just like a clown.
yeah.
That's my alter ego. That's Silly Billy. And he's based on the character clowns from Pinky Lee in the 50s to Blippy nowadays. And it's he wants you to like him so badly. He will do anything to get you to like him. He'll be super silly, even though it's not always the best thing for him. And we talk about how you don't have to pretend to be something you're not. Like, you don't have to push a button to tell me that you like me. I like you. I want you to know I like you, and more importantly, I hope that you like you.
Yeah.
Like we need to give more of that through these windows, I think.
Yes, it's so much philosophy that you bring to the children. I feel you carry it with your art, and it's really precious. Thank you, Danny Joe, for doing that for the next generation.
Oh, thank you for allowing me to, and thank you for helping me to share the story with others. I really hope people check out the
Yeah,
show, where you can find past seasons now on Sensical TV. And I know
yeah,
there's a link in this interview description. But the third season is going to drop really soon. And again, it's some of the best stuff we've ever done. I'm really excited for people to see it.
yes. And if people want to reach you or ask more question, or that's the place to go, or yeah,
Sensical is the place to go for watching everything. If
yeah.
you want to interact with me and write me an email, you can go to dannyjoestreehouse.com.
Hmm.
And for creators out there, I also this past year created LaBrecque's Studios, and I know I'm not the only creator out there that feels this way, and I want to help other creators to find the side doors into reaching more people.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in that sort of stuff and you need a little guidance, you need some collaboration or just someone to bounce ideas off of, look up LaBrecque's Studios, or dannyjoestreehouse.com.
Yes. Thank you so much, Danny. That's the conclusion, and that was like lovely to talk about like philosophy of TV show for children. I think we dig into it really deep, and it's great.
Yes, I think so too. We did. We always have a good conversation, don't we?
Yes, totally. So stay in the virtual studio. I do the little conclusion, and we talk after. Yay! Say bye, Danny.
Bye.
Everyone.
Au revoir.
Bye bye. Choo! And yes, thank you so much for watching, people. And yeah, if you want to know more about what's going on in the podcast world, you always are welcome to watch our Patreon. You maybe know already, but yeah, feel free to reach to us. We have this book going around to help artists, and we keep create and working, and yes, we love puppet, but we love to know more about creators. So that's why we do those special edition of like side stuff of the puppetry world, and to dig into what we do more and more. So everyone, yeah, feel free to reach to us and tell us who we should interview, and yeah, just reach and we exchange and keep create, and stay safe. And yeah, we don't say that anymore. Stay safe. You are safe. Everyone are safe. Yeah, create, and have fun. Bye.